Good afternoon. So this will be a break from science and from speaking about the horrible circumstances of my life and humanity in general. And this now we'll talk about something which is a little bit theoretical, but it relates to. It's not going to be something new. Possibly many of you heard it before, because I'm not going to it's not something that is not only new, like that you have heard it from me, but maybe you've heard it like in all sorts of like other places, or maybe you thought about it yourself. So, but I feel like they need to speak about it because this relates very heavily to one of the things that irritates me the most. And as you know, this is the issue of the theater show. The fact that people, like everybody that ever knew me, always wanted me, and they still want me to participate in all kinds of theater shows, and I don't want to participate in these shows. And always, and until now, this like plea to participate in a theater show, it had hidden a very scary threat of violence. There was always a violence behind this kind of plea to please just participate in the show, because almost always these people are in some way related to the government or the states, to the intelligence community, and they have a lot of power over me because they don't really have any civil rights. It's all just a joke. And there was always the threat that if you will not participate, if you do not participate, we will put you in prison, we will put you in a psychiatric hospital, we will take your daughters, we will fire you from the job, we will take all your money. And most of this stuff already happened, if not all of this stuff. Like, everything that I said already happened. But even before it happened, it was always the implicit threat that if you do not participate in the theater show, you will, the state will take revenge from you. So this theater is, of course, one of the tragedies of my life, and I do not want to participate, and I will not participate in it. I will not participate in a theater show of any kind. This includes all sorts of like mock trials and mock job interviews, mock trading. No, the mockery must stop. And I want to use the opportunity to speak about this issue, but from the more general perspective. You know that in our current culture, especially during the last 15 years, there is the issue of superheroes is very prevalent. Like there are so many, far too many actually, movies and TV shows on this subject. It's not something new at all. It started its popularity during the years of I guess around the Second World War. Even though it actually started even before that. But since the Second World War, it's like it's important motive of popular culture, but during the last 15 years it gained a huge momentum to the extent that it's almost become the dominant form of entertainment for a lot of for large strata of the population. So many thinkers in the last decades spoke about this issue from a critical perspective, from literary criticism perspective and cultural criticism perspectives. And maybe I should mention only one of them is Umberto Eco. He wrote a book about the phenomenon of Superman. And I actually already mentioned Umberto Eco regarding to the Foucault's pendulum, which actually taught me a lot about my current situation, about the absurdism of intelligence communities, and also the Name of the Rose. So he wrote both fiction and literary criticism books. So I want to say something very simple and not inventive or something, not something new, but that it bothers me a lot, and I think that it's not trivial to everybody. So it's important for me to say that with regards to the phenomenon of the superheroes. So the question is that why does society expect superheroes to wear masks and to have a double identity? Why is it the expectation of society? Now sometimes it's something that comes from the interests or the moral perspective or the worldview of the superhero itself. But I do not want to speak about this phenomenon. My question is strictly, why does society expect superheroes to wear masks and have like another identity, like double identity? So I would say that this could happen because of two reasons. The first reason is because people expect to give this person like much less than he or she actually deserve. Like, for example, they expect Superman to save them from all sorts of like trouble, but they expect that, but they want to give him the salary of like a junior newspaper man, and they want him like to be kept like poor and like helpless and like without like social like without all the things that he deserves like by right. But they don't want to give anything for him. They surely want him to keep being Superman. They want him to, like in this case, it's not in the case of every superhero. I speak about the two reasons why society wants superheroes to have like mask and secret identities. So one, first, they just want to take a lot and give nothing in return, or almost nothing. And for that weapon, they want him to be in mask. So they will not have to, because then, I mean, presumably they don't need to give him anything in return. And of course, this is extremely, what can be more relevant to my life? I mean, this is the state of mind of the state of Israel since I was born. Take everything from him, including his flesh and blood, and give him nothing in return. Because why should we? We can just, pretend that he's not what he is. And even when he finds out what he is, even then we can keep the show, like he keep pretending he's not. How funny can it be? So, it doesn't matter if he finds out or not, because all we need to do is to pretend that he's not what he is, keep taking everything from him, and if he refuses to participate in the show, we can hunt him, we can terrorize him, we can fry him, we can electrocute him, we can take everything from him, we can take all his money from him. He will be the scum of the earth, he will be under our boot, and still he will give us everything. This is the first reason why they wanted him to wear a mask. Now there is a second reason, which is a little bit more complicated, but it's, in essence, it's not very different from the first one. It's not very different from the first one, but it's a little bit more complicated. So the second reason why, the society wants the superheroes to wear masks and to have a secret identity is because these people, they do not obey the law. Their actions are transgressions. They break the law, sometimes in a serious fashion, and society, cannot handle this. Cannot accept this. They cannot sustain this the fact that people, that people, and especially people that are known and they have names and their faces and they are part of society, they break the law, but on the same time they want these people to break the law, because if they didn't want them to do anything at all, so this is the situation of like in The Incredibles, for example. And it's not only in The Incredibles, in Watchmen, in many actually other classic superhero tales, that society just don't want superheroes at all. But this, I'm not speaking about this case. In this case, the demand would not be to wear a mask and to have a secret identity, but just to stop doing your thing. Maybe they would also want them to hide their identity, but the main demand will be stop doing whatever you do, and act like normal people. But we do not speak about this situation, about the Watchmen or Incredible situation. We will speak about the scenario when society wants them to keep doing whatever they do, but what they do, is in great conflict with the law. And if these people did not wear a mask, then, according to the law, they should be arrested. But the society doesn't want to arrest them because they want them to keep doing whatever they do. So that's why society wants them to wear a mask. But this is actually there is that to be said about this reason and about this scenario. Because we should ask ourselves, how is it possible that society wants these people to actually break the law? If the law is good, then they should obey the law, and if the law is bad, then people should change the law. How come society wants these people to break the law? Doesn't make sense. How is it possible? How is it possible? So the answer, from a philosophical point of view, the answer is that this is not actually the case. That in reality, they do not break the law, because from philosophical point of view, when we speak about the law, like in philosophy, there is the issue of nomos. It's from classical like philosophy and classical thought. Like the law is not something like that is specifically when you think about the law, we do not, necessarily mean to any specific corpus of laws that are written somewhere, or to a constitution, or to any written document, or even any codified document, even if it's transmitted orally. This is not the law from a philosophical perspective. The law, nomos, from philosophical perspective, is the rules of which the society actually acts upon. And maybe part of it is actually based on a written document to such an extent or another, maybe with constitution or maybe without constitution. But from a philosophical perspective, the law is not, any specific document, but to what rules the culture and society actually adhere. And this means what part of the written law are actually you even care about, because many times, many laws, people just don't care at all about them. It's not part, it's just there in the written pages. But even if they do care about the law, it's not to the same extent, because there are all sorts of things like, what laws, are enforced by the police, and what laws, what kind of criminal activities with regards to the law are rather serious or not by the various branches of the government and society in general. And also there is a question of what actually the people of the state actually think about the law. This is also part of the law, because even in dictatorships, you can, the ruler cannot acting with complete disregard to whatever people think and say. This kind of situation only happen in the movies, in fiction. In reality, even in the most severe dictatorships, there is always the wish of the people always have some kind even substantial, would you say, substantial influence on what's actually going on. And this is due to many reasons, but first of all, due to the nature of power, to the nature of force, how power is actually allocated and between people, and how power is actually kept by the people that hold the power. But I don't want to get into it. The issue is that the important point here is that the law is not a written document, but the law is how nomos is how actually people consistently act, and only part of it is a written document, this or another. And other parts are what is enforced by not or not, and what things, how do people interpret the law, there is the issue of judicial, how judges, interpret the law, which is very, complicated issue, because, presumably, there is some kind of a hierarchy. The Supreme Courts, is the main interpreter of the law, or that the highest authority of how to interpret the law, and below there is the district, this is at least in Israel, but the model can be found in many places, and there is in the third degree after the district courts, there is the family courts, or just simple, regular, it's called a shalom, regular courts. But in reality, the situation is actually much more complicated than that. This is just a model, it's not the way that it actually works. The way it actually works is much more complicated than that, and many times it's actually the other way around, that the lower judges are actually the one that in effect, they decide how to interpret the law, and not the Supreme Court. Even if the Supreme Court actually handle a specific question, even in that case, it's the way that they handle it will not necessarily be how the law is being enforced. This is not, it's just a simplistic, the whole hierarchy is very simplistic, and it's not the way actually things work. So all of these together are the real law, not something that is actually written. So if we come back, if we go back to the question of the superhero and the mask, the real question is not why do they expect them to break the law. If the law is good, then the superheroes should obey the law, and if the law is bad, then they should change the law. This is not the real question. The real question is, why does the real law of the land is not codified in a place where everyone can observe it and actually know what it is? This is the real question. Because the actual law in such a scenario where superheroes are not only allowed to exist, but they're actually encouraged to behave, to exert their special powers, but at the same time they must hide themselves and act wearing masks. This situation means that this is the law. This is the law of the land. The law of the land is that superheroes are allowed to exist and they're required to use their power, but they should hide it all the time. This is the real law. This is the real law of the law in the land. And the question here is, why does this law is not codified? Why is this law known only to a substrata of the population and not to everyone. And the answer is that whenever such a thing happens, that a law is not codified, even though we are speaking about a society that generally has the habit of codification of law, because in future society, in past societies, many didn't even have that. They didn't take the trouble to actually codify anything. There is the famous Hammurabi laws. That many people think that they were the first ever to be codified. Actually, the idea of code of law was not always present in humanity, but it's with us for many thousands of years. So the question is, in modern societies, why do you not codify this law? And the answer is that many times, actually, laws are not codified, but always, when this happens, always, the reality is always that this is because some people in the population wants to abuse and take advantage of other people. In reality, this is a kind of apartheid, or a subset of apartheid, because the people that know the real law, they don't want to tell everyone the real law, because they gain something from it. Usually something materialistic, but not always. Maybe it's like a thing. They get honor, value, or respect, or a position in the state, or maybe sexual or familial, I don't know, power or something like that. But usually this is materialistic gain, like money. So a part of society, the part that actually knows the real law, they gain money because they know the law, and they gain it on the back of other people within the society or in other societies that do not know the law because it's not codified. So this is a part of a system of abuse. Now, not necessarily abuse of the superheroes in that case. The first case where I've said it two cases, why society wanted them to wear masks. The first case is that plain and simple, they just want to abuse them, they want Superman to act to do magnificent things, but they don't want to give him anything in return because they are this is the Israeli case. But the second scenario does not necessarily mean that the superheroes are the ones that are abused, because possibly they are part of the system, and they also gain all sorts of money and other gains from the fact that they know the law, presumably, but not everyone in the same society know the law, and in other societies many other people do not know the law. So this is, but perhaps also in this case, also the superheroes are the ones that are being abused. But for certain, they are abused and people, and there are abusers, and the abusers are the ones that actually know the law, which is not codified, in order to hide it from the other segments of the population and populations that do not belong to the state, that lose money that they deserve and they belong to them. They lose, and this money actually is transferred to the hands of the people that actually know the law. And the request from the superheroes to act upon their powers, within their powers, the superpowers, but hide themselves, is there for this abuse to continue. Now, regarding the first scenario, they said it's plain simple in my life. They want to take everything from me and they want to give nothing in return because there is no end to the greed of the Israelis. Now, the second scenario is also true for Israel and also for the rest of the world, but this is more complicated because this issue, is more relevant not to me specifically, but to the Titans, the other foreigners, because they also, the society requests them, demands that they will hide themselves. And yes, exactly as I said, I outlined this is mainly because there is a system of abuse here, but it's not true. But maybe some of them, or almost all of them in Israel, it's all of them, but in other places it's not all of them, but some of them actually are part of the system. So they gain money, so yes, they are part of the system of abuse, but they are the abusers in this case. They gain money that do not belong to them. And to identify, whether the Titans are the abusers or the abused is something that is difficult because it's probably it changes and the extent is changed between societies. In Israel, for certain, the Titans are, they are part, they belong to the class of the abusers, and they take things that do not belong to them, and they want to give nothing in return. And that's why they not only comply with the demand to hide themselves with masks, but they also punish severely, other foreigners that do not want to hide his or her true identity.